everybody seems to be on. I'm still searching for my home. Up in the morning, out on the road. In my head shaking, in my hands are cold. And I'm looking for the silver lining in the clouds. And I'm searching for the philosopher's stone. And it's a hard road, Daddy. When my job is turning lead into gold. It was born in a back street, Jelly Road. I'm on the road again, I'm searching for the philosopher's stone. Searching for the philosopher's stone.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Well, you've seen it now. So that whole trip cost me about $14,000 Canadian. Probably a little more today. But then I'd probably be sleeping in a bed most of the time. So. All right, so what we're going to do is, and if it starts taking up too much time, we won't. But I'm going to read you an excerpt from each one of these books. Before I do that, I want to comment on this sign, which is just north of Nanaimo. And it's amazing what you can learn about people from signs. If you look at the bottom of the sign, you see somebody has tried to scratch off the I to make it legal with two L's. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, was he driving a vehicle and he got out and he decided to take the I off? No, he was hitchhiking, right? So the first question is, why is he hitchhiking beside a sign that says it's illegal to hitchhike? The second question is, why is he trying to scratch out the I when I'm sure the RCMP would have driven by a dozen times before he finished it? But if you stand back and you look at signs with the eye of not only a hitchhiker, but of somebody who knows anything about punctuation, the sign says, no hitchhiking pickup is illegal. So why would you bother scratching out the I? If they put a period behind the hitchhiking, then the sign would make sense. So every time I drive by there, I have this tremendous urge to jump out and stick out my thumb and go again. That's the way that is. Anyway, it's got nothing to do with this, but I thought you'd enjoy it. So. All right, so let me just do a little more detail about the map, because I did hitchhike most of it. So I hitchhiked down through Baja, down through Central America, but I had to fly across the Darien Gap because my pirate boat in Colombia, which was smuggling, or in Panama, which was smuggling televisions into Colombia. It was kind of unusual because most things were being smuggled out of Colombia. It got blown up by the Colombian Army or Navy while I was in Portobello. So I had to fly to Medellin. And I landed right at the peak of the ascendancy of the Medellin cocaine cartel. So there's a good chapter in there. Then it only paid to take buses and trains down through some of the less expensive countries until I got to Chile, and I couldn't afford it anymore, so I had to start hitchhiking again. And hitchhiked through Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, and through Brazil, where I ran out of money except for the amount of money that I had left to buy a one-way ticket across to South Africa. And the only reason I got that is because I knew the Consul General, South African official in Rio, who told me that he would disavow any knowledge of my existence if it didn't work out. But it worked out. So then I hitchhiked through Africa until I got to Nairobi, and that's 2 chapters all by itself. I had to fly into Ethiopia and then fly into the Sudan, and I took trains up to the Holy Land. Then I hitchhiked all through Europe, except for these 2 flights within the Soviet Union. That's another story. And I'll tell you about one. And then I had to fly. I was trying to hitchhike through Iran when the Ayatollah took over, and they didn't appreciate what I'd written on the visa application at the border, so I had to go all the way across Turkey and get an Egypt Air flight to Karachi. And I landed in Cairo after midnight, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, I met Destiny over there. So anyway, we flew to Karachi and ended up taking trains mostly through India and Nepal. Flew to Burma, and then took trains through China and through the Soviet Union. Hitchhiked through Japan, a lot of hitchhiking down through here, hitchhiked around this part of Australia, hitchhiked most of New Zealand, and then flew home, took 2 flights back to see my parents who hadn't seen me for 5 years. So, here's some stories. The first part of the journey up to here is in the first book, Orions Cartwheel. The second part through Europe is between the cartwheels. The third part around the Indian subcontinent is Hind Cartwheel. And then the last part is Final Cartwheel. So here we go. This excerpt comes from me trying to hitchhike to Victoria Falls by the end of the day. And I didn't make it. It is said that the worst thing to happen to Africa was the arrival of the white man, and that the second worst thing was his departure. I arrived smack dab in the middle, climbing into the cab of a flatbed tractor-trailer, hauling sandbags north. The tall, bald black driver grinned with his single-peg yellow tooth and gave me that double grip, Indabili handshake that requires you to count your fingers on the way out. I thought I would make it to Victoria Falls that day for sure. Right on dusk, the truck pulled over and the driver motioned me out. I got the part about how he was turning down a thin, forlorn groove track, but I wasn't sure he got the part about how it was getting dark in the middle of the Matabeleland bush. He gestured with his index finger that I should carry on down the Falls Road. I thanked him and descended into the blood-red stillness while he turned into a receding cloud of dust. The sun goes down quickly in Africa, like a pinball spiraling into a hole. It was black in a minute. Then the noise started. First with the insects, and then working its way up the food chain. I believe it was the low guttural moaning that got my legs moving. I started to whistle, and then thought better of it. I wasn't sure what the precise definition of landing in shit was in Africa, but I was convinced I might be converging on it. Way off in the distance, I thought I saw a light. As I paced along the lighter shadow between the 2 dark ones, I grew more hopeful I was right. Maybe Toothless was pointing to something after all. 20 minutes later, Slathered in sweat, I came left and down off the road, over a short, narrow bridge, and into a clearing surrounded by mature trees. There were monkeys. I walked past a warthog sitting beside the path. He looked at me like he'd been expecting me. I ducked under and through the large bats swooping in the air above me. Aerobatics, I thought. In front of me was my light. It was at the top of a stone stairway that led through an open door into a foyer decorated with the heads and skins of African game. The sound of animated conversation and clinking glasses came from around the corner. I walked past a full gun rack towards the source of the activity and came into a bar. Paper money from all over the world was plastered on the river stone wall behind the bottles. And, plastered in front of that, were 3 old white men with large mustaches and fellies and long socks, quaffing mug